They know why I'm here.
And we are live. This is episode 16. We're celebrating NFL's Wild Card Weekend, and this is. But before we get into anything sports related, I want to say huge shout out to this video sponsor, Not of Nature. It's actually a clothing brand by my boy Che with his best friend Ryan. It's actually this clothing brand right here. They have hoodies, beanies, shirts. They got a whole bunch of stuff. He designs all of his stuff himself. All the designs are off the top of the dome. He's worked with a bunch of different companies. I can't remember all the names. I will attach all the links in the description, and I will have them on my IG page. Matthew, come here. Just in case you're not rocking with one of the whites, we could definitely get you one of the black options. This is the Lost and Found hoodie with the Knot of Nature on the hood. Want to turn around there. Che designed this himself, took this picture and kind of ran with it. This is the type of stuff you're looking for. It's not of nature. It's stuff to be different. Thanks, Matt. Stuff to be different and stand out. Thanks, buddy, for moving my camera. And look good at the same time. But let's just jump right into it. We're going to get into NFL Week 17. I will forever do that. Let's just start with the most depressing thing of the week. Miami versus Buffalo.
Okay.
Well, the good thing is that the Bills clinched the number 2 AFC seed, so that's always cool. The bad thing is that the Dolphins got whooped by 30, miss out on the playoffs, and Tua throws 3 interceptions in the final regular season game.
You done messed up, Aaron!
All right, moving on from that. Atlanta versus Tampa. No, I'm kidding. But I really feel for Tua. I really feel for the Dolphins. We went 10-6. We are the 10-6 team that missed the playoffs. There's a lot of 10-6 teams in the AFC. We are the one that missed the playoffs. It is what it is, to be completely honest. We had a rookie quarterback, and our kind of safety net, our veteran leader, Ryan Fitzpatrick, couldn't play in the Week 17 game due to COVID problems. That sucks, but of all the teams to draft a rookie quarterback this year, we were the best. So if you're looking for some consolation, there you go.
You're going to learn today.
Atlanta versus Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay had 11 wins for the first time since 2005. Tom Brady threw for over 4,000 yards and 40 touchdowns. The only Bucs quarterback to ever throw for 40 touchdowns. That includes Jameis. The Bucs offense is clicking at kind of the right time. They're peaking going into the playoffs. They struggled all year. And then over the past 5 or 6 games, since it's been Tom Brady's type of offense, they're kind of just like rolling. So I guess they're starting to click at the right time. This is awesome leading into the playoffs. It's going to be good for TV. Dallas versus New York Giants. Dallas sucks. New York sucks, but could have made the playoffs. We'll get into that later. Mike McCarthy has not been fired yet. Jerry Jones probably isn't going to fire him, but he should be fired, and that's that. The New York Jets versus the New England Patriots. Both of these teams suck, and Cam had his best game as a Patriot in Week 17 trying to show out. I still don't think that the Patriots were going to re-sign him, which brings me to kind of like, I was just thinking, and I don't think the Cowboys are going to franchise tag Dak again. I don't think they're going to sign him to the deal that he wants again. Wouldn't it be crazy if Dak Prescott went to New England?
Bruh.
Like, you kind of have this perfect situation where both need redemption. And they kind of need each other. So, I wouldn't be surprised to see Dak in a Patriot uniform next season. Minnesota versus Detroit. Justin Jefferson set the rookie record for yards in a season with 1,400. Minnesota's defense is garbage. It used to be a staple of that entire team. It used to be what made them great. Now they're trash. So when you rely on Kirk Cousins to win you games and get you into the playoffs, you're not going to be able to get into the playoffs. And I am so sorry. I'm so sorry, Matthew Stafford, because Detroit has wasted your entire career. I have never seen a player with so much talent just be wasted on such a garbage football team. I'm sorry, Matthew Stafford. Baltimore versus Cincinnati. Baltimore actually had a franchise record, 404 rush yards. They absolutely mauled Cincinnati 38-3, beat them by 5 touchdowns. Cincinnati will be back strong. They don't have their franchise quarterback, so when you have the number 1 pick, and then your whole team pretty much revolves around this guy, and he gets hurt, you basically have the same team you had last year, which is terrible. So I'm not really upset that they're getting killed later in the season, but it's not surprising. I do believe, though, that Baltimore will be bounced in the first round of the playoffs. Once again, Lamar Jackson goes 0-3 to start his career in the playoffs. And I think that starts to build the narrative, but we'll definitely get into that later. Cleveland versus Pittsburgh. This is a big one because the Browns won, which means for the first time, I think since 2001, they make the playoffs.
Okay.
No, I lied. It's 2004. It's a 16-year playoff drought. Let me look that up real quick. $18 years. 2002 was the last time the Browns made the playoffs. I was 2. I was shitting myself the last time the Browns were in the playoffs. This is awesome, man. I even wrote it. Said go Browns. I saw this little Green Bay Packers fan. It was a video of a Green Bay Packers fan just running around his house celebrating. And his mom was like, why are you celebrating? And he goes, because the Browns are in. The Browns are in. 3 years ago, they went 0-16. They had no wins. And now they're in the playoffs. They get a chance to go to the Super Bowl. Like, what? The Browns are in the playoffs, man. That's awesome. It's great for football. Great for the city of Cleveland. So proud. And Pittsburgh benched Big Ben, and they only lost by 2. But we're going to see it again during Wild Card Weekend. So that's going to be interesting. Seattle versus San Francisco. Russell Wilson is magic in the fourth quarter, man. He could play like absolute booty for 3 quarters, which is kind of what he did. But in that fourth quarter, he is a magician. He just finds ways to make it happen. Seattle's probably not going to win a playoff game, but they beat San Francisco to, I guess, go into the playoffs off a win. I don't know. They're probably not going to win a playoff game. Kyle Shanahan is really, really good at his job because San Francisco has no quarterback, no defensive line, no offensive line, no receivers, no second. They don't have a team this year. Everybody's injured. Their best player is put up Pro Bowl numbers in only 8 games. George Kittle put up Pro Bowl numbers. He has better stats than the guy who's going to the Pro Bowl, and he only played 8 games. Kyle Shanahan is good to go, man. He's going to be in San Francisco for a long time. Arizona versus the Rams. Congratulations, Mikey. The Rams are in. And not congratulations to Kyler Murray because Arizona's out. This was a divisional rivalry game. Week 17 to decide who's going to go into the playoffs, and it was an absolute stinker. Final score was 18-7. Rams win. Not excitingly at all, but they're into the playoffs. Jacksonville versus Indianapolis. I actually watched this game intensely because if Indianapolis lost, that means my Dolphins were going to the playoffs. But they played Jacksonville. They played the 1-win Jacksonville Jaguars. So I knew as soon as we lost the game to Buffalo that we weren't getting into the playoffs. Because on the week that the Dolphins needed to play the Buffalo Bills in order to get into the playoffs, Indianapolis played the 1-win Jacksonville Jaguars. Baltimore played the 4-win Cincinnati Bengals. And Tennessee played the 4-win Houston Texans. And we played the number 2 seed in the AFC. You know, that's just the luck of the draw. So Indianapolis is in the playoffs. Jacksonville showed a ton of heart in this game, especially late in the game. And in my opinion, next year, Jacksonville's head coaching and general manager vacancy will be the most appealing. It's going to be flat out the best. It's better than Houston. It's better than New York. The Jacksonville job is going to be so easy and so good. They have the most cap room in the NFL. They have a bunch of draft picks, and they have the number 1 pick. So you couldn't be walking into a better situation than Jacksonville next year. Tennessee versus Houston. Houston really tried. Houston tried to mount a second half comeback. And almost did it. They had Tennessee on their heels for a little bit, but Tennessee was able to push it out on the back of Derrick Henry. J.J. Watt actually came up to Deshaun Watson after the game and apologized to Deshaun. He said, "Man, I'm so sorry. We wasted one of your years. We should have 11 wins." And Deshaun kind of was just like, "Okay, it is what it is." And then Houston hired their new GM today without consulting Deshaun. And Deshaun's mad. And it's kind of been like talking to his teammates. And the way that he's talking is kind of like he wants out. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that Deshaun Watson situation. He's a top 7 quarterback, and he deserves to be treated as such. Tennessee with the win clinches the AFC South, which is awesome because fuck Indianapolis. Yeah, I just censored myself. So what? Las Vegas versus Denver. Las Vegas squeaked it out by 1 point after losing by 1 point a couple weeks ago to Miami. Las Vegas had the biggest failure of a season. They go 8-8. I think they were on a 6-game losing streak at 1 point. Denver's going to be back next year. The AFC West is going to go hard next year. You got Las Vegas went 8-8 this year. Denver's going to be way better next year because they're going to get healthier on the defensive end, and they're going to figure out and the quarterback's going to mature more, and Drew Lock. Kansas City's Kansas City, and the Chargers have Herbert and a great defense.
Okay.
It's an average defense, but they still have Herbert. So it's like the AFC West is going to be crazy next year. I wouldn't be surprised if next year we had 3 AFC West teams in the AFC playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised next year. The Los Angeles Chargers versus the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think this is kind of. I think this is more like a gimme game for Kansas City. They lost 38-21. They had already locked up the number 1 seed in the AFC. So I think this was more like a, hey, go out there and play. Don't hurt yourself, but like whatever, you know. Herbert still broke the rookie touchdown record. He threw 31 touchdowns this year. I did give Kansas City a pass for Week 17, but from what I saw from Week 11 to about Week 16 was that this team, there's something not right. Uh-oh, what happened in the world of sports? San Antonio's up 8 on the Lakers. Whatever. Yeah, there's just something not clicking about this team. The offense just isn't meshing right now. They're so reliant on like the big play down the field that when that doesn't happen, they're like not a good football team. And they got to figure it out soon because they do have the first round bye, but Kansas City could be bounced in the second round of the playoffs if they keep playing the way that they're playing. So that's that. Hopefully Kansas City's able to figure it out within the next 2 weeks. Green Bay versus Chicago. Green Bay absolutely murdered Chicago, sweeps the season series. Green Bay clinched the NFC number 1 seed. Chicago still made the playoffs because the NFC is so top-heavy. Chicago will not win a playoff game. They play New Orleans. They made it. Mitch Trubisky got you into the playoffs. How? Bruh. I have no idea. But he's not going to win you a playoff game. Sorry, Chicago. It's not happening. New Orleans versus Carolina. New Orleans absolutely dominated Carolina, 33-7. I feel so bad for Matt Rule. He's such a good head coach. He's been dealing with a lot of injuries, a lot of roster. This is not a very great roster. Got a lot of young players, but it's not a very great roster. So I feel very bad for Matt Rule coming into it's kind of a bad situation to come into. New Orleans has, I think, one of the best total rosters in the NFL. Drew Brees is probably retiring after this year, so you know those guys are going to play extra hard. Carolina really needs to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback. I don't necessarily think they have to do it this draft, but I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is the future because he's not winning very many games. That's just what it is. Washington versus Philly. So let's talk about Washington first, and then I'll go on my rant. Washington clinched the NFC least with a record of 7-9. They won the game, so they just outright clinched their division. No tiebreakers needed. They went 7-9. They're going to play Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the playoffs, which is awesome because this leads me into Chase Young, who I think has GOAT potential. When I look at Chase Young and when I hear him speak and when I'm watching him play, He says all the right things of a leader, and then he's on the field, and he's 22 years old getting triple teamed by grown men. Like 2 years older than me, getting triple teamed by NFL offensive linemen.
You're going to learn today.
If he manages to stay healthy, Chase Young is going to wreak havoc on this league for probably 12 years.
That's according to the Bible.
Probably somewhere around 12 years. Could be longer. And this brings me into my rant. Philadelphia absolutely disgraced football. Doug Peterson, late in the third, while Hurts was playing well, decides to bench Hurts for Nate Sudfeld. I think his name is. I could be wrong. Because who cares about that guy?
Finish him.
You understand you're eliminated from the playoffs. And it's always said, I think Dan Orlovsky said it best. He said, front offices tank. General managers tank. Owners tank. Why? Because you want to build, you want to tear down to rebuild. So you need draft picks. So you want to do bad during the season so you can get good draft picks and start building your team from there. That's fine and dandy. Players and coaches are not built to lose on purpose. You're never going to find a real football player or a real football fan. And when asked, do you want to lose this game? No real football player or coach or assistant coach or trainer will ever tell you yes. Nobody that actually loves the sport of football will ever actually try to lose a football game. The players are just not built like that. I have never heard a player say, I'm happy we lost that game. No matter what the outcome is, no matter what draft pick you got, no player is happy to lose. No real player is happy to lose. No real coach is happy to lose. So when Doug Peterson goes, I wanted to put our team in the best position to win. And I thought Nate Sudfeld deserved reps. That's not the same. Those don't go hand in hand. You play the guy that's won you games. You play the guy that's keeping you in it. You don't play the guy that didn't get first team reps in practice all week. It was the first time in my life I feel like I'd actually watched a team purposely try to lose. And from what I've heard, Philadelphia's defensive players were trying to storm his office after the game.
Bruh.
Because they didn't understand why Hurts was pulled. They had no idea why their quarterback, who was keeping them in that game, who was playing amazing, who was making big plays, why he got pulled. They had no idea. Nobody did. Doug Peterson is going to stay in Philly, and that just shows how much of a dumpster fire organization the Philadelphia Eagles is. Zach Ertz is one of the best players, one of the best men in the league. Does all the community service in the world. And they're not going to sign him to an extension to keep him in Philadelphia. He stayed on the field after that loss. What is probably going to be his last home game in Philadelphia. Until 1 a.m, he stayed on that field and he cried. You owe it to Zach Ertz. You owe it to Philadelphia as a city, and you owe it to the fans. And you owe it to real football fans all over the country to play your heart out week in and week out. And to watch a team, not even a team, to watch a coach purposely try to lose a game just made me sick. It just made me sick. I sat there confused and hurt. I've been watching football my whole life. I had Miami Hurricanes season tickets when I was 2 years old.
Bruh.
I have never seen this before. Let's just get into the wild card weekend. Indianapolis versus Buffalo. You're gonna find out in my top 10 what I think about Buffalo, but they're head and shoulders above Indianapolis. I think they handedly take care of this team. I think the Dolphins have a better defense than Indianapolis, and Buffalo put up 56 against our defense. So that's that logic. The Rams versus Seattle. I just think this is a really bad matchup for Seattle. Seattle's just not clicking right now. They're not very good on defense, not very good on the offensive line. And the Rams have Aaron Donald. So it's like, what do you want me to, like, I'm going to go with the Rams. Tampa Bay versus Washington. This is going to be my controversial pick. I'm going to go Washington. Why? Because I feel like Washington wants it more. And there's no pressure on Washington. They're at home because they won the worst division in football. They have 7 wins on the season. There's no pressure on Washington to win this game. All the pressure in the world is on Tom Brady being in the wild card for the first time in his career. Is on Tom Brady and Bruce Arians. Because they need to win within the next 2 years. And if they lose on Sunday, then they only have one more shot. All the pressure is on Tampa. No pressure is on Washington. And from watching them play, I think Washington just wants it more. So I'm going to go Washington. Baltimore versus Tennessee. This is where I think Baltimore Lamar can't get a win. Tennessee's going to bounce them again. And I think this really sparks a rivalry between Baltimore and Tennessee. Not division rivals, just rivals that always meet in the playoffs. And one team just kind of whoops up on the other. I'm going Tennessee all day. Chicago versus New Orleans. Mitch Trubisky doesn't score a touchdown. New Orleans by a lot. Cleveland versus Pittsburgh. It actually came out right before I started filming. Juju Smith-Schuster came out and said, "That's the same Browns team I've been playing for 3 years. It's just a bunch of gray faces." He's basically calling them trash. Like, you just took the L to them, and you're going to call them trash. Granted, you sat your quarterback, but, like, is Mason Rudolph any worse than Big Ben? Like,
Bruh.
I don't think so. Like, Big Ben's on his way out anyway. He's old. He's not making the plays that he needs to make. It's not the same anymore. Mason Rudolph could do what Big Ben does if he had the time with the offense. It's not rocket science. So just that logic alone, I don't care if it's in Heinz Field, I'm going Cleveland. And that brings me to the top 10 teams of the week. Number 10, I'm going to go with Seattle. Number 9, Pittsburgh. 8, Tampa Bay. Like I said, all of those are getting bounced in the first round. Then I'm going to go Cleveland, Baltimore, and Tennessee at 5. Green Bay and New Orleans at 4 and 3. And then at number 2, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. And that leaves number 1, in my opinion, the best team in football right now, the Buffalo Bills. In the 90s, you went 0-4 in Super Bowls. This might be the year. Do I think it is? No. But the way that they're playing like the best team in football right now. And that's just a fact. Just to get some news on the NBA. I love that. Markelle Fultz, torn ACL, out for the year. He was really having a breakthrough year. He was really putting up good numbers in the first 8 games of the season. I feel really, really bad for Markelle. He's had to fight and fight and fight. And for everybody to finally start noticing and him to get hurt is just, it just sucks. It sucks. Bradley Beal and Steph Curry both put up 60 pieces this week. Curry with a career-high 62 points against the Portland Trail Blazers. That's always awesome. Curry's back, I guess. Everybody was shitting on Curry. I don't know why. I mean, he came back off an injury. Like, we couldn't give him a little bit of time to just get affiliated with the game again. Like, what are we doing? Losing our minds? Phoenix and LA are tied for the number 1 seed in the West right now. They both are 6-2. The thing that I didn't even know until I was researching for the podcast, Philly is 7-1. They're the number 1 team. Hey, how about that, Mark? Philly 7-1, number 1 team in the East right now. That's pretty good. Only played 8 games. Just a little fun tidbit. Brooklyn's 4-4. Why? Because Kevin Durant hasn't played in a week because of COVID.
That's according to the Bible.
Just looking at the East and West side by side, the West is ultra competitive as it is, but the East is like, this is the most competitive the East has been in a long, long, long time. The East is wide open. I couldn't tell, like, just looking at the first 8 games, I couldn't tell you who, like, I couldn't tell you who's going to win the East. Because all of the teams have lost to each other. Like, yeah, Philly, because Philly has the best record, whatever. But the Bucks have lost to a bunch of average teams. The Heat are below 500. Brooklyn's at 500. I think the Celtics are 5-3. Like, that's not great. The East is completely wide open. I think when we get into, like, that March, like, the East is going to be fun to watch. Let's get on to the UFC. There's no events this weekend. Holloway versus Cater is going to be on 1/16/21, so we'll get into that next podcast. But other than that, thank you to the Raw DJs. Thank you to Not of Nature for sponsoring the podcast. Go check them out. Like I said, every link will be in the description. They also have a podcast, Ryan and Che. That link will be in the description. I'll put all of their links on my IG, which you can follow at PMDubPod. Just love everybody. Be excited for Wild Card Weekend. And we are out. Woo!
Jeez.
I hope there's music.
You know why I'm here.